Tom Richardson, many of you know, he's BookNet Canada's Bibliographic Manager. He is the Prince of Onyx, and he is a handholder of many publishers. Take it away, Tom.
I thought a quick overview of the data in BiblioShare would be a good introduction, so like where we are now. This sort of thing always highlights problems more than it does successes, but I'm going to try and call out those as well. These statistics don't mean anything. I mean, they're not quotable. They're kind of vague approximations. So they're just trying to sort of set what is proportionately in BiblioShare. So we would really like to have more than 20% ebook metadata. And I can confirm that some suppliers, not Canadian, I don't think, are using single ISBNs to support multiple digital formats. So in some cases, the digital data that we have in BiblioShare is not even really appropriate to support the type of services that we offer. So one of BiblioShare's successes is supplying data for digital-only or combined digital and physical product lists. There are several library initiatives, and we work regularly with publisher marketing associations. Any B&C Catalyst catalog for ebooks is an example. The point being here is there are needs that exist for metadata outside of international retailers. This is my only code slide. And it's just here to illustrate that some of the data is a bit dodgy. This is digital data on both sides, two sections of price composites from two data providers. I was going to parse it out and really explain in detail why it fails so badly. You can have that as homework. Suffice it to say that it's inconsistent. It's not supporting the same value across composites. It's contradicting, it's using codes incorrectly or apparently incorrectly. I mean, I'm speaking as a third-party data provider. If I can't interpret the data, that's what's happening. This is not really interpretable. So neither of these would actually work for us very well. And I'm sure that the companies who are receiving the data know what to do with it. But if you want to work indirectly with a company, have data you don't have to explain because you have a contract with them, then if you want that sort of data working for you, that's a type of discoverability, then you might want to actually present data according to the Onyx standard that could be interpreted by outsiders. Another completely meaningless statistic. This is print and digital and a very rough estimate. What's foreign? It's all for sale in Canada. It's not just Big Five data. We have major Canadian distributors who, as well as US ones, who are giving us data, usually for medium-sized to largish US companies, consortiums, that type of thing. What this stat is really a rough estimate for metadata designed for retailers. So publishers can't afford to go adding data points, and they want a clear return on investment for they want a clear return on their investment before they want to add anything. So as a group, this sort of 3/5 of our data is very slow to add data, though if you give them something like, say, keywords, and they know that the retailers are going to be using them and feel that there's commitment for it, it's remarkable how fast the data can change. So to be clear, for a publisher, there is no known return on investment for discoverability data. I mean, it just doesn't exist. But the other side of that is that for a retailer, even basic and proven soft data points like audience and audience range have proven, well, woefully inaccurate in what is being sent. And that's not a good criticism of anyone. Data is like this across like all sorts of companies and things. But my point is that ROI is a two-way street, and if only 20 or 30% of the senders are giving a data point, and that's often true, and only 20 or 30% of that data, or 20, 30% of that data is wrong, 70% right, but 20% wrong sort of thing, then it's pretty hard for a retailer to have much ROI on what they're loading of yours. And certainly we have difficulty interpreting the data because of that. Now, on the more positive side, around a quarter of our data is Canadian. And if you want to see a group that supports discovery data better, Canadians are doing it. We did the impossible and we added the wonderful CA marker to our descriptions contributors and demonstrated that we can actually better support marketing of Canadian authors. So Canadian metadata is generally better, supports a wider range of data points, and it does so because of enlightened government programs that give us discoverability tools, and publishers can actually see their data in action, like on 49th Shelf, BNC Catalyst, LPG's All Lit Up. And that quality can support the useful BiblioShare services that Tim's going to be describing. So discovery data, soft metadata, does help even if the ROI calculation is vague. But just remember that accuracy and consistency counts. Poor data practices really, really show up when third parties try to use metadata. And almost any company that starts to use publisher metadata is, well, first depressed by the lack of support for the data points they expect to find. I mean, they think, oh, the original date for the publication, this copyright was held by, will somehow be available to me. It's not. And then they're depressed by the stuff that they do find, the percentage that's bad, because 20 or 30% of it probably is. And then they get on with exploiting it, and they do an awful lot of work to get there. And they do it with way too little complaint. But my point is just to emphasize that any poor use of data adversely affects any company who has used it well, even if it's in another company's feed. And for the harm that data is doing, it hasn't done anything to help the source business either. So the emphasis is to just ask questions, look at what you send, and if you have any doubt about what you're doing or why you're doing it, maybe don't supply it till you know. So the other great thing in standards, governance. There is a Canadian bibliographic standard governed by BNC's Bibliographic Committee, which identifies opportunities special to our market and tries to ensure that our supply chain is happy and data practices in Canada are compatible with the US practices governed by the BISG. A little more on them later. And all of this is fed through our joint practices and goes back through to editor, who in turn sets up through their implementation and best practice guides and things like that, a whole international standard which is informed by all these various national groups feeding data into them. So we have what amounts to a virtuous cycle of best practice information going back and forth between these two source documents, the various organizations and things like this. It actually works. I'm just skipping a little here. So you have our two standards Bibles, joint best practices, working together. Now, the current joint North American best practices, the one here, is just currently being revised to bring Onyx 3.0 best practices to the fore of the document. So, frankly, we're rating editor's document and putting them in our own document. And the point is to try and get the industry to understand and promote use of functional Onyx 3.0. So this document isn't ahead of where the supply chain is, and it's behind editor's document, which is actually explaining fully how Onyx 3.0 works. So that's more or less the progression of these things. If you see something that you don't know how to use, get in touch. If you can demonstrate that there's a need in Onyx that you need to support, get in touch. Who to get in touch with? Well, me directly, BookNet. BISG is an alternative if you're a member of them. You just explain what you're looking for and you'll get feedback. That's how it grows. Okay, news, new things. BiblioShare's certification quality reports are being revised. I know that's been promised before. They really are happening, and it's in beta right now. And what will change in them? Well, to be honest, if you read the joint best practices, you'll see the list of rules that we have in progress. That's the general point of things. I have 5 minutes. I'm going too slow. ISBN, there is nothing new here. Absolutely, nothing new here. However, the standard is being revised. It's about 1 year into a 3-year progression for the ISO standard itself to be revised. How is it going to be revised? Well, the BISG policy document for identifying digital products is still the best guide to that. You should read it. Product versus work. Metadata would be a hell of a lot better if we used work identifiers, and we're not. Nothing new there. The only news here is that BISG is engaged in a major study of how other industries are using work identifiers, and the hope is that from that, something that you'll be willing to use will come out of that. So look for that in the future. Nothing's really going to change because of that, but that could be very useful to everyone. In terms of subjects, there's quite a lot happening. FEMA implementation and version 1.1 was just released in about October or so. So there is a new version of FEMA available. I would like to emphasize that in BookNet Canada's opinion, Canadian publishers would be better served by FEMA than they would be by BISAC, for the simple reason that FEMA is international and BISAC sort of is US-based. So I think there is a good reason for you to shift over. We have about 7,000 books showing FEMA values now in BiblioShare. It would be better if there were more, but that's a good start. No retailer is going to shift to using FEMA until the data points actually exceed the value of the BISAC information. That's kind of just a reasonable thing to expect. And BISAC is not going anywhere. BISG is just in the process of reviewing young adult subject headings. And if you're a member, there are 2 town halls about to happen next week, week after, that you should try and participate in one of them, because young adult, as we know from BNC research, is a growth area. And they're looking to improve the subject categories. So 2 more BISG white papers. Last spring, the best practices for keywords was released. And as I've already said, people are applying it. You should, if you are not aware of that, you should start doing it. There was also recommendations for citing Common Core state standards, which is a specialized standard for a fairly common curriculum in the US. But what's exciting is one of the working groups, Educational Standards Taxonomy Working Group, is producing a list of terms, kind of like a keyword list, but set terms that teachers would provide to parents is basically what it comes down to. So they would send the kid home to say, the kid should be doing some reading, the reading should be on this subject. This is a list of the types of terms that they would use. So a standardized list of useful terms to identify books. So imagine, if you will, that your metadata contains an audience range. You have this list of terms, and parents can actually find your books that are about unreliable narrators. So grade 8, around 12, something like this, an unreliable narrator book, you're selling one, you put them together. It's that sort of soft data, that sort of discovery soft data. There's no ROI on that, but you can see that it can increase your sales. I mean, you should be looking for this sort of opportunity and trying to support it when you can. Similarly, the 2 more BISG working groups there's an Onyx 3.0 working group. They're the ones largely doing the joint best practices revisions. They've also are just completing an Onyx 3.0 survey for how to make the transition. I'm being told to make a wrap. There's also a schema.org working group. This is a really important one, although again, it's all kind of what SEO for later. Schema.org is an organization that the search engines pay attention to. So basically, it provides a level of metadata tagging within your web page that the search engines use and can exploit in very great ways. Go to schema.org, read up about it. We're mapping Onyx to it. There is a new standard, an ISO standard for linking identifiers. There is an Onyx acknowledgement message. What's an acknowledgement message? It's like you send an Onyx file in and they send you a message back about it. The big thing in Onyx right at the moment is developing subscription models. If you're thinking about them, you should either be paying attention or talking to people who are talking to editor. And this is the Onyx 3.0 white elephant, or elephant in the room, which is you just want to do it now, please. Do we have time for questions? Any questions? I say I took 15 minutes and 42 seconds.